I wish there was somebody that could explain to us, because I feel like a lot of us who are in recovery and have gone through, the trenches, you know what I mean? Just some really hardcore crazy stories, and live such a beautiful life. Like it's unreal a lot of times. Like I sit here and just think like, how was somebody who was so strung out on drugs able to be so successful and, center themselves to focus on nutrition and health, fitness, all of those things, like just a complete turnaround. Like it's hard to explain to some people who have never been in our situation, who do good about eating right, going to the gym, and they go through, I don't want to say little life struggles. Everyone goes through struggles that are strong for them. But for us, some dark places.
For sure. And you're right. I didn't understand any of this until I understood it. Mm-hmm. And the most beautiful part about this process is I just simply dumbed my way into it. Mm-hmm. Right. And I always talk about, I kind of came into sobriety as a king, and I worked my way up the ladder to become a humble servant. Mm-hmm. Right. It's such a contradiction of how I thought life was supposed to be lived. And it all derived from pain. Right? Mm-hmm. A really bad, dark, deep place. And I around and did the worst thing I could have ever done for my life. I bought into the process. Mm-hmm. And in buying into the process, I started to acquire this knowledge, this information, meaning that I could no longer roam around this world ignorant to the fact that there is a better way. And unfortunately, I am my problem and the common denominator in all of my problems. And if mm-hmm. I just maybe get the out of my way and surround myself with some genuine, like-minded people who sincerely want to see me be the best version of me, however mm-hmm. that may look, mm-hmm. without any expectations of who I should be or the direction they think I'm headed in. And all they did was they allowed me to do this at my own pace, mm-hmm. at my own willingness, from consequences of my own reactions, that created enough motivation to find some willingness and say, you know what, let's do this. And in doing that, I acquired this like godlike conscience, mm-hmm. right? So now, even despite how I may feel about somebody or what I want to do in a particular situation, I'm not even capable of doing those things, because it will, require me to revert back to the guy I was before having this transformation, right? And what happened was I had a spiritual experience, and the definition of a spiritual experience is simply a psychic change, which means I've been completely rewired. So I, Brandon Novak, today, with coming up on 9 years sober, no longer look or think about things the way I did when I came in that position of pain, holding on to a seat at a 12-step meeting for my life because I had to be there. Mm-hmm. And today, I want to be there, mm-hmm. and I love to be there, and I get to go there, and I don't have to get there to save my life anymore.
Mm-hmm. Right? That spiritual awakening, do you feel like that was just like a boom, aha moment, and you had an awakening, or do you feel like it was a process over, your last situation that got you sober?
It was a process throughout the whole journey. Mm-hmm. Going back to what you were talking about before, having this, caring about health and mm-hmm. and your body and wanting to take care of it to live a longer life. That wasn't who I was. I literally did whatever with whomever, wherever. For the better part of like 20 years, my life was like spring break on steroids, methamphetamine, Adderall, like any, speed. And then I'd gotten sober, but I was in that place of pain that derived this outcome, literally. And I was willing to do whatever they suggested. I didn't know if I was done. I had no idea if I was finished. I just knew that I didn't want to feel how I felt anymore. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, if you eat better, you'll feel better. And in detox, where most people just rely and depend on shoving as much sugar down their throat as possible, I was in such a place of pain that I'm like, you know what? I'm going to cut out the juices. I'm going to drink the water. Just the simple that was always suggested to me along the way that didn't make sense until it made sense. And then I bought into the process. I had acquired a sponsor. We began to work the steps. And none of that made sense to me. 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. And until I was on my 8th step and I had to revert back, which was making a list of the amends that I was going to have to make. But I had to revert back to the 3rd step where I had turned my will and my over to a God of understanding, because I had lied to my parole officer. And I was in detox, and he had reached out and he said, my therapist called me to her office, your parole officer on the phone, and he'd like to speak with you. We get him on the phone and he says, Novak, I have 2 questions to ask you, and just know that if you're lying, it's probably one of the worst lies anyone's ever told to me, and I will violate you. And I said, oh, well, what is it? And I'm in treatment, and I feel great, and I know that things are going to be different. But I know not to say that because I'm the boy that cried wolf so many times. Despite how much I believe like my life was going to change, unfortunately, not even unfortunately, the reality was I wasn't willing to do what was required in order to achieve those results. So I'm in this treatment center, and he calls and he said, number one, I've heard that you've been spotted in bars around Westchester, Pennsylvania, which is where I was living at the time with Bam. And I'm like, no, not at all. I'm in treatment. I can have letters. You can talk to my therapist. And he said, number 2, did your mother die? Because prior to going to treatment the last time I was in Baltimore, the stipulations for my parole was I was not supposed to leave Pennsylvania. I was supposed to be clean and sober. I was supposed to report to his office to produce these clean urines. And the reality was I was in Baltimore. I was on a crazy heroin and cocaine bender. And if I would have pissed into that cup, it would have lit up like a Christmas tree. And he called me while I was in Baltimore, and he said, hey, I need you to come in to give urine. And my mother, who's the most important person in the world to me, I thought about it, and I was trying to figure out a way to buy some time, and I'll never forget it. And I just shot a really big speedball, and even as out of my mind at the time that I knew that I was about to make a really bad decision. And I'm in her backyard and I'm pacing, and he got me on the phone, and I said, well, I'm in Baltimore because my mother just passed away, and I'm helping to make these funeral arrangements. And I knew in my heart of hearts that I just said something that I was going to regret. I would never wish that on the most important person, whatever. And he said, did your mother die? And I had worked the first 8 steps, right? But none of it made sense at this point in time. And I said, I wanted to say no, but he promised me, if you lied, I will have to violate you, and you will go back to the penitentiary. No maybes, like stamped. And I said, yes, she did. And he said, I'm going to need some proof of that. So I hang the phone up. My immediate next call is to my assistant, CJ. And I said, CJ, I need you to draft up an obituary. And he said, are you insane? That will never work. They will see right through this. And then the next call was to my sponsor, right? Like, I didn't want to know the truth right away. So I had to kind of go through these layers. And I called Lex, and I said, Lex, I'm terrified. He promised me that if I lied, it was the worst lie he'd ever heard. And 2, he was absolutely sending me back. And Lex, my sponsor, said, well, you've experienced the 3rd step. You've turned your will and your life over to a God of your understanding, right? I said, yeah. And he said, okay, well, here you go. God is everything or he's nothing. Number 1. And number 2, worst case scenario, he sends you back. That's where you're supposed to be, because someone in there who needs to hear your message that can't make it to you, you're going to make it to him.
I have my dear and amazing friend, Mike Diamond. Hi, Mike.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm always good.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Always good.
Yeah. Always good. Always grateful.
Always grateful. I'm always grateful too. Gratitude and abundance for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sitting here with you in this beautiful studio. You're looking fabulous. I mean, I don't have my head in a toilet somewhere snorting lines of cocaine, making bad choices. So I'm pretty good and grateful.
Doing okay today.
I'm doing great. It's all good.
I love that. Well, thank you for coming out here and making the trip. It's been a good day so far. And thank you for speaking with me at the Red Ribbon Run for our small little community here in Hollister. I think it was a really good turnout. It was fun.
First of all, thanks for having me out. It was really special. What I find really, I learned this thing years ago, and this guy told me that wherever you go, carry the same message, but make sure that the message has the same impact of whether it's one person or 10,000 people. Obviously, the volume will be different, but you want to make sure you're authentic. And if you're authentic, it cuts through. And I felt like today was really special because all those people, they were there for a reason. You know? Yeah,
it makes you want to just know all of their stories. I'm looking around and I'm like, okay, are you in recovery? Are you here because you have a loved one that's currently struggling with addiction? You know? So especially runs like that, because I feel like there's so much purpose behind it. You know, I mean, me personally, opiates was my drug of choice. So it, you know, and our shirts having the, you know, basically screw fentanyl on the back of it. To me, it's like, I wish I could hold it up higher and scream a little louder type deal, you know, and having a brother that's struggling, it just, that really was more personal for me. So I'm sure that everybody there was going through similar things, you know?
Yeah. I have a question for you. Do you think that, opiates never clicked with me. Like I did opiates. They just didn't. I don't know if it's because of my opiate receptors in my brain. I have a massive threshold for pain, but being ADHD, I don't have the dopamine receptors, so it was always cocaine, crack, like something, a stimulant. Do you feel that if someone uses opiates, even if they aren't an addict, they'll get addicted?
Yes. After a certain period of time, people will. I believe it's like 10 days is what I've seen. Because I have the couple of facilities. And so we have people that call and say, I'm not an addict, but I was prescribed pain meds for a recent surgery or, you know, a car accident, whatever it is that they were prescribed. And what I've found over the years too is that they'll give a prescription of, 50 Norcos with 2 refills, which is crazy to me, with zero knowledge or education on, okay, here's a prescription, take it for pain as needed. But if you take it for long enough, be prepared that now you've become physically and mentally dependent on it. And I've had so many individuals reach out and say, I had this medication, I stopped taking it, and I think I'm experiencing withdrawal symptoms. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, what symptoms are you experiencing? You know, and feeling clammy, sleep insomnia, and restless legs. I'm like, oh yeah, you're absolutely experiencing withdrawal symptoms. But they don't have any knowledge of it. So all it takes is a couple weeks, you're taking it every single day, and now they are addicted, even if they weren't in a category of addiction and they're not buying it off the streets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it definitely is. And for me, it was a replacement, right? That dopamine and feeling that sense in which they say like heroin is better than sex. I mean, it's a very true statement because it's replacing times like 1,000, you know? So there's no love or intimacy cravings at all because you've replaced that with a synthetic drug. And usually then I've noticed too, having the facility with opiate addicts, then that sex drive comes back much stronger in treatment, right? When they take away the substances. So it's something, it's interesting to see because then we start seeing love addiction and all of those things start popping up because that's what those endorphins and that we're lacking. Yeah. They're trying to find it in other ways too.
So what do you think? Because like for me, I got sober in 12-step programs, right? Mm-hmm. But There's this weird thing right now, like especially because like, Gabor Mate, Dr. Mate, right? And he says it's not a disease, it's trauma-based, right? And I know definitely for me, both my grandfathers died of alcoholism. But I had massive trauma, like not even a question, mental, physical, sexual, all the abuse was there, right? So do you think that when he says that it's just trauma-based, we remove the trauma, that the addiction goes? Because you know what I'm saying? It's such a weird thing now with science, because
right.
it was like, well, you're an alcoholic, it's a disease. I'm not saying,
right.
and I'm not saying it's not a disease. It's just
right.
a very interesting. We're in a different time now.
Well, and I think what's hard is, see, for me, I didn't get sober through the 12 steps. I went to a cognitive-based program, and what we learned through treatment was it's a choice. You're not an addict. So I've found myself in, and I'm really glad that we're bringing this up, because this is a touchy subject. And I'm sure that listeners are listening a little closer on this one, because we also learned things in moderation, which was interesting, right? So if it's not negatively, so let me take it back a little bit. When somebody says, how do I know if I'm an alcoholic? There's different levels of alcoholism.
Correct.
There's the alcoholic who never drinks, and when they do drink, they go hard and they're crashing cars or landing themselves in jail. They're blacking out. Or there's the alcoholic who's never been blacked out drunk, but has to have 2 glasses of wine every single day to unwind and to go to sleep. Now they're dependent on it for sleep. So my answer to that is, if it's negatively affecting your life in any area of your life, it's a problem.
Disempowering, yeah.
Yeah. You can't compare yourself and say, well, I'm not an alcoholic because I've never been wasted. I'm not that bad, right? Well,
so here's a question for you, because it's funny. So that's why, like, when I say dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, right? Even though I went through the 12 steps, as soon as I stopped drinking, I just had no craving to drink again, right? Even with Coke. But the first time of cocaine I did, I was addicted. I was like, oh, I want to do this all the time. But then when I stopped.
Right.
So it's funny, because today, I think the guy you talked about came up to me and said, oh, all the stuff you talked about is cognitive behavioral therapy. And when I read that stuff, which was early Socrates-based, Socratic questioning, it just clicked to me. And when people come up to me, they're like, oh, you don't really talk 12 steps. You talk more cognitive behavioral therapy, think, feel, act, my choice. I believe it's always my choice.
Right.
To make the empowering or disempowering choice.
Right.
But do you, when you just said, which I think is really interesting, and people just blame the victim of the disease, right?
Right.
They don't take responsibility.
Or then they have a relapse, and it's like, well, it's because I have a disease.
Right.
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 So
yeah.
I see it both ways. And when I first got sober, it's like you go into the rooms and it's like, hi, I'm Cheree. I'm an alcoholic addict. That personally didn't sit right with me to say that. And this is just me speaking personally. Oh, that's what we should have done. Okay, you know what? You said you might stay out here a couple of days.
Yeah.
We have skydiving.
Yeah, but I need the person to hold me. I'm be screaming.
Well, they're not going to let you
You're
jump out.
You're going to think we're in a long relationship the way I'm holding them. I'm going to hold them so tight. They're like, Terrance really loves this guy. No, I'm not trying to die.
Well, I don't think they'll let you just jump out of a plane by yourself without experience
with
someone else first.
Psych.
Oh my gosh. How about those cows running at us?
Yeah.
For a second there, I really did think.
I thought they had beef, man. I thought they wanted smoke.
They were mad.
I was about to test my power, see if I can knock the cow out. You know what I mean?
Well, you're the one that was egging it on, talking crap to the babies until we parked.
Those are my cousins, so we go way back.
I'm dead. I can't. That's so funny. Well, Terrance, thank you so much for coming out here and being on the podcast. I'm excited to share some hope. And you've got an awesome story and you're doing amazing things. So I'm excited to share that. So UFC, when did you get started with that?
I was around 22. So this what got me into MMA. So about like what was it, 2014. I had like a near-death experience. So like I took like over an eighth of shrooms and a viral acid, and yeah, I ended up start tripping really bad. Saw some demons, fell through a window, and that's when the trip really got active. And I saw this crazy stuff, ended up going to heaven for a second, and I was like, dang, that was a lot of fighting in my pretty much my movie. And I was like, and I became like one of the baddest dude on the planet, and I was like, that's only one place you can do that, and that's the UFC. So I got my life together, changed everything around, and then I went to college for one more year because it's easier to get into Bellator or like one championship if you have like a national title. Like if you're wrestling with a national title, they'll build you up and set your career up for life. So I went to go try to do that, and the coaches wanted to keep me around for an extra year. So I dropped out the next semester, and I started my journey. Started with jiu-jitsu first.
That's cool. That's cool. So, I mean, I just have to ask, because that's like a lot of drugs. Did you do that on purpose to have like, oh, this sounds fun. This sounds like a good time. At first, I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah, you know, when you're younger, you just feel invincible. Now when I'm older, I'm like, I ain't trying to die. But back in the day, I really didn't think about the repercussions. You know, when you're younger, I used to try to do backflips and stuff.
Right.
Now you try to give me backflip, I'll be like, hell nah. I ain't trying to break my neck.
Right.
When I was younger, I was like, hey, I got to hit this.
To try it?
Yeah.
I know.
So it's kind of like one of them things. Like I was like, let me just see what's up.
Did you remember it? Like everything that happened?
Yeah.
You did remember?
I remember the trip. I remember the whole thing.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Because a lot of times people forget about it, you know?
I'm very visual. I got like a photographic memory. So like, yeah, I remember the whole thing. It was a movie scene.
And do you remember how you felt while you were in it?
Yeah.
Were you scared?
I felt after I was scared at first. So I'll tell you a little part of the story, but I can't tell you the whole thing because like I'm saving it for Joe Rogan, but I'll tell you a little part of the story. So, my trip started and I'm watching TV. I'm trying to change the channel because I don't really mess with South Park. So I'm like trying to change the channel. It keeps going back to South Park. I'm like, what the hell? This is trippy. Like I'm pressing the button. I know what I'm pressing. And it keeps going back to the same channel. And then out of nowhere, the demons show up. And I was like, oh, shoot. They're like big black figures. And I'm like, dang. So I start praying. And they make me start speaking a whole nother language. And I was like, what the heck? I was like, what am I even saying? It made me stop thinking about praying, you know? And then I was like, I was thinking smart. I was like, man, these guys can't stop my thoughts. So I started praying in my head. And then I was able to speak English again. And then I stood up to these demons. I was like, I'm not afraid of you guys. And I went to go take a step forward. They shut my body down. And like, I had to watch myself fall. Like I'm falling towards the window in slow motion. Like, oh, I want to stop it, but I couldn't stop it. I had to like watch myself fall through a glass window in slow motion. Boom. And it knocks me out. And I just feel like all reality melting. Like, just melting. And then I wake up and I'm like, I feel so powerful. I was in reality for like a quick second right there. I'm feeling so powerful. I'm like, whoa. When I get up, I'm like, I never felt this powerful before in my life. And I end up doing like $3,000 worth of damage to this person's apartment, whatever they're staying at, duplex type thing.
Who were you with? Were you with friends?
Yeah, so-called friends. But they act like they didn't really know me and stuff. Once I watched the video, act like they didn't know what drugs that I'd taken when they giving it to me. So yeah, true colors show, you know, when situations get dicey.
So you didn't even know what you were taking originally?
No, I did.
Oh, you did?
No, they acted like they didn't know what I took.
Got it.
They just started, he just started wilding out. I don't know where pretty much what they were trying to say. Yeah.
And how did you feel like after? You know what I mean? Like, was that a wake up call for you? An eye opener? Like, holy shit, that was scary? Or, you know what I mean? Like, what did you think after?
I'll tell you what I was thinking, because I woke up in the hospital. I'm like, I thought I was still on the couch. I just thought I was just tripping, you know, just seeing all shit. It didn't really happen. But I wake up at the hospital, my hands are all swollen, my eyes all cut, I got stitches, my hands swollen. And I'm thinking, I was like, I don't know what I did. I got to get out of here. And I see the cops. I'm like, oh, shoot. And I pretty much turned to like 007, do a couple rolls, steal some clothes, escape the hospital.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my. Why? Because you were scared of the cops?
I knew. I was like, dang, the cops here. And I was kind of strapped in. I was able to like rip it off pretty much.
Oh my God. And so what happened?
My mom ended up calling the hospital I was at because she wanted to know what happened.
Yeah.
She's like, did you get raped? I was like, hell no. Because I guess there was a poop stain on the pants I took in at the hospital.
Oh my.
I was like, oh, hell no. I remember if that happened, gang. I was like, that didn't happen, Mom. Chill out. So she calls the the hospital, and they're like, yeah, your son was supposed to go to jail when he woke up.
Oh my gosh. So were they looking for you then?
Yeah, then my mom like does a lot of good stuff in the community, so they just didn't take me to jail. They let
you
me
got
stay
a freebie?
with her. No.
You stayed with her?
No, I just didn't have to go to jail that day. But I ended up having to go to court and stuff. I injured like 4 cops, so.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy. That's sketch.
Yeah, it was. So I was praying. I was like, hey, this ain't a wake-up call. No, it is. I was not trying to go to jail for no years.
Right?
So, and just knowing
were they injured bad?
I broke one nose.
Oh my God.
Couple other injuries like shoulder and stuff. I told them I'm too powerful. They should have listened, you know?
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Might be on a lot of at one time.
I was like, if I seen someone do that, but I understand, like, that was the grace of God, like, that the cops didn't kill me, especially in the time that I was in. People were, like, dying left and right from the cops. So,
right.
I was grateful. I'm grateful to be alive, like I said.
Yeah, absolutely. Just curious, did you make, like, amends with them or
try
to?
I definitely, I'm all about that, making amends. So, I ended up writing a letter to him, reading it to him in front of the cops. And then I did a lot of work for the cops. I spoke at high schools, came to their events for the youth. So it was pretty cool doing all that, working with the cops, got to drive around with them.
Oh, wow.
It was a great experience. Like I said, like I tell people, in the darkest time, you might find your brightest light. Out of the darkest situation, it ended up being a blessing. Like I was able to change kids' lives. And it was cool, like, speaking at schools, because you wouldn't think kids would listen, but since I was so close to age, they actually listened. And I was able to help kids get off drugs, and that was a huge honor. Like,
we have my amazing friend, Ashley Holt.
Hi.
Thank you for coming all the way here. I mean, you flew in from
Connecticut,
which is far. But you're a travel bee like me. So you're constantly on the go.
Yeah, on the go. I like moving around and going to places.
Not sitting still like me.
Yep.
That's perfect.
Yep, you know.
And that's why I got these swivel chairs. They're like, do you want to have just, regular chairs to sit still? I'm like, there is no way. If I cannot swivel or move around, it's not going to work for me.
I know. I'm a fidgeter. And this is a good swivel, too. It's like nice and greased up.
Just like a little bit, So I'm going to get it out of... Yeah, my system. But thank you so much for coming on. I am so excited to have a conversation with you today. You are so inspiring and you do so many amazing things. I mean, and I can attest now because I have had your amazing baking and the cake that you had made for my parents' anniversary. I mean, that was just phenomenal and so good and so beautiful. And you have been on Netflix shows, Bake Squad, Cake Boss. That's so exciting. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
I mean, I can only imagine everything that goes on behind the scenes and in your life to be where you are today and like to have everything that you have and that you do, and you are a mom. So I acknowledge you for all of those things. How did you get into it? Like, have you always been baking, or is that a newer thing?
No, the very first cake I ever made was my little brother's second birthday cake. We're 17 years apart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was the very first cake I made. And at that point in my life, I just graduated high school. I was getting into modeling, like something that came out of nowhere. And I started working in this industry. I'm like, all right, this is pretty fun. But it was so emotionally draining for me. And where I would keep falling back on when I would come back after like a grueling day on set is into the kitchen, and then I just started baking something. It was so just relaxing and peaceful, and it was a nice, safe place for me.
Okay. How old were you? This was right out of high school?
Yeah, 18.
Okay. And what did you make for his cake, his second birthday?
Yeah.
Did you decorate? Is it like?
I did. It's just a single tier. It has polka dots, a awful bow that I did. I'll have to find and show you a picture. It's really sweet looking back on it, because it's I never ever could have imagined where cake would have taken me in my life.
Right.
Like the journey that something like flour, butter, and sugar. I mean, what doors that has opened up, and what doors that I created for myself.
Yeah.
Like the paths, it's so easy to pick any job and just kind of do your playbook of, okay, I like baking. I like doing cakes. I'm going to be a pastry chef, and I'm going to stay in the restaurants and, work up to an executive pastry chef, and sticking like the path that has always been there before you. It's like, okay, this is the way that it should go. But I knew that, I don't know, I just wanted to do it different. And I wanted to find other opportunities that existed outside of just the four walls that I was in. So when I started decorating, at this point, so I was modeling and I was decorating for like an escape. And then when I left modeling, then I had to do something. It's like, all right, time to pick a career.
Yeah.
Got to do something. So
get a big girl job.
Exactly. I was like, let me go tour this culinary school. I was torn between either doing hair or going to culinary school. And when I went to culinary school and I saw the pastry chef flat ice a cake, I was just like, oh my gosh, that looks so relaxing and so wonderful. And I was just hooked from that point. Wow. And yeah.
Was this in Connecticut?
No. So actually I've moved around a lot. Where I went to school, it was in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, wow.
I don't even know if the school's around anymore. I think it got like shut down for, I don't know, something bad.
No. A culinary school in Kentucky. Was it like a small little school? Yeah.
Yeah. It was a small school, but it was close to where I lived at the time. And I went in for a couple, so crazy thinking back, trying to like recall these memories because it feels like a different lifetime ago, But when I got to school, I went for 2 semesters, and then I couldn't get approved for financial aid for the third one. I couldn't get a cosigner. I didn't have any money to put myself through school. So I was kind of forced to quit and just figure it out myself. So from that point, I was getting just looking where I could find work to get as much experience and like real world on the job training as possible. Of course, I went to the school of YouTube, taught me everything, but just went from working at like a little cupcake shop and then going to a bakery that did a few more things, and then a bakery that specialized in cakes. And then I went to a hotel that had a really nice pastry department. So keep like going up the ladder and challenging myself to learn a little bit more. And right, any place or at any point where I would get comfortable in a job, then I would quit and get a new one to challenge me. And it's just a culmination of all of these places and experiences in the world, this cake world of mine, that has been able to really create like a pretty awesome job and career for myself. And it's like when people ask me, what do you do? And it's hard for me to just say that, okay, I'm a cake artist.
Right.
One, like it still feels like imposter syndrome, even just being able to confidently say, I'm a cake artist.
Right.
Because like, for whatever reason, I mean, I get so in my head with everything anyways, but I always think, well, what is the other person hearing that thinking about what I'm telling them?
Right. What do you think people would think hearing cake artist?
I don't know. Sometimes, honestly, I feel like if someone, I mean, especially where I live in Connecticut, there are just a lot of very established, there's very accomplished people. And sometimes I don't feel like I'm good enough whenever it's like a finance person, which to me, I'm no disrespect, that's like the most boring job that I could ever imagine. So for me to be like, feel like I'm not good enough because I'm just a cake artist. So I forget all the time the experiences that I've created for myself. And when I have to go back, like, Ashley, why are you selling yourself short? Like, you have these shows, you have bought yourself a house being a cake artist. Like, it's
an art, and it's, you know, and the creativity side of it. But I can see what you mean. And that's hard to get out of that. I'm just, you know, you know, and it's like, no, okay, eliminate the word just, and I am this, and being able to proudly say that. And maybe just people don't understand what it entails. I mean, I've seen firsthand your creativity. And you know what's crazy, Ashley, is when I watched you do this cake, and I know it has not been your first one, you know, and it's not going to be your last one, but you have a look in your eye when you are doing your artwork. And I saw that. I saw that in you. And I was really curious to know, like, how did you get into this? Because this is very unique. And the detail and the thought that you put into it was just phenomenal. And you had shared a little bit with me. And I thought that, you know, especially with the field of work that I work in with mental health and substance abuse, and some people finding an escape for themselves, you know, and for you to be able to, and you said when you were younger, that's kind of where it started, right? It was like your safe spot of going to it. So like, if you don't mind, I'm just curious to know a little bit more of that. Like, what would be going on that was your safe haven?
Thank you. First of all, it's very, very sweet. Whenever I'm in these in this creative zone, like nothing else exists. Time doesn't exist. Like, it is me, my hands and my mind, like all working together to create this art. And that is what it is. And it doesn't matter if it's made of cake, buttercream, chocolate. It's edible art. And I pour my soul into these creations. And I've been artistic since I was a kid. Like, I'm constantly creating something, no matter if I'm walking in the woods and I see a couple twigs, I'll weave them together with a leaf. Like, I have this need to constantly create something. And whenever I was able to merge that creativity with baking, and when I was modeling, the baking was something that I would bring to set, and people would compliment what I was making. But on the flip side, I was also like getting picked apart physically because me not being good enough physically, if I didn't fit in the clothes, or my face looked weird in the pictures. Modeling is a really hardcore job.
Right.
A lot of people, you know, think it's just glitz and glam and full of these shallow people, that it's like, that's not what it is. It really can take a toll, especially being a vulnerable young girl.
Right. Oh, I could imagine.
Yeah. So I'm like spinning off on the question that you even asked me, but whenever I needed to find something to do, and where I found my release and where I was most confident and at peace and centered with myself is when I was in this creative space. So I had to figure out, this has to work for me. There's got to be a way that I can make a living while being an artist, while being creative.
We have the amazing Bianca Richards with us, and I am so happy to have you here.
I'm so honored to be here. Thank you.
You're just such a sweet soul. And I mean, I briefly met you at this retreat, and instantly I was like, I love her. She's so sweet. And you just, you know, when people walk around, you can just tell that they have the biggest hearts and pure souls.
And the feeling was reciprocated when I met you. Like, it was just, you were just a beam of sunshine and so happy. Like, and it's interesting because I would never have known, now speaking to you about your history, I think the things that break us really make us. Because like, now that I'm learning, I'm like, wow, you've been through so much to make you who's sitting in front of me now.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, is we all have such unique stories, and I love meeting people who just have different, backgrounds and careers. And it's just fascinating to me to be like, okay, I love, like, you are a model and you are amazing at the work you do. So I'm interested to hear a little bit about what that looks like for you and the struggles that come along with it. I'm sure that it's not easy. I mean, I can't even pose for 2 seconds just to take one.
I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing half the time.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I can imagine like moving. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm getting a kink or something. So how do you do it? Is there like a class that you have to take?
I don't even know how it. I feel like it was just a sequence of fortunate events that got me to where I am. I never thought I could ever be a model. I did bodybuilding in another lifetime. So that probably gave me a little bit of experience in posing and understanding the body. And then, yeah, like I said, like I didn't think I could be a model, but somehow I guess the universe was like, you need to be here. So this is how we're going to do it. And I love the creative side of it. I love working with creative people. Like, that's what brings me to life. But it's definitely like, I have my moments. It's not my passion. I really am someone who is more interested in self-growth, self-development, and probably a side that I don't really share as much on my social media platform because I am a very private person.
Okay.
But that's actually where my true passion lies. But modeling has given me the opportunity to travel the world. I love adventures. I get to meet people like you. I get to meet all sorts of people, which is just, I mean, I couldn't be more fortunate to have had that. So
Definitely.
But definitely, like, I've had certain things have happened since I've been, I guess, in the industry, and I've had to compartmentalize those things, like whether it's events that have happened or things that people have said. And all of those things kind of just helped shine a light on parts of myself, because at the end of the day, like, I can't control what other people think of me. All I can do is just really get in touch with who I know I am and be very, very cemented in that, which is something that I always struggled with growing up, because I was raised in a broken family. My father left. My mum wasn't well, and she had my sister and I became a very, because the environment was very unstable, I had to really lose who I was and be very tuned into my parents. So I became very codependent. I became someone who was I had to keep my mum happy. So, these are things that as you get older, you start to realize, that's not normal not to have boundaries. And that's not normal to want to be a people pleaser, because you think you're doing this just wonderful thing, but what you actually is you're trying to control other people's opinions of you. So my biggest struggles growing up was something that getting into this industry was something that shone the light on that, because I was like, I can't make everyone happy. Not everyone's going to like me. And I've really got to now learn who I am and where I start and where I finish, not going into being codependent or hyper vigilant of everybody else.
Right. And having to, at a young age, when you should be playing the child role, you're now reversing and you're being the caretaker.
Yeah. I have a feeling your experience probably was something similar to that. Yeah.
Yep.
So you really understand that. Yeah.
And like you said, you don't realize that as a kid. You know, and I look back, I had a great childhood. I have an amazing family, but I had an absent father. And my mom did a phenomenal job playing both roles. So I didn't really know any different. Yeah. But what I do know is that now, like you said, right, looking back, I stepped in as that parent figure for my little brother,
So you the oldest?
I am.
Okay, yeah. That's always, you become a bit of the caretaker.
What about you?
I'm the oldest as well. So yeah, the caretaker role, when you're supposed to have your needs met and you're supposed to be looked after, as the eldest, you become the caretaker for the parent. You just,
Right, so, exactly. And that's how I felt, with my little brother. We're 3 years apart, but just even as a little girl. And I mean, and to some degree, it could be being a female and just having that nurturing characteristic about myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm still that way. I'm still the caretaker. But I'm learning now that I have to take care of myself, you know, and my husband always says it's a blessing and a curse. Like, I have such a big heart, and he sees me, you know, I light up when I'm able to help people, but it also, I take everything so personal because I want to help everybody, that it really hits me really hard when something doesn't go right, or, you know, and so it's hard, and I love it, but I'm learning the boundaries.
Yeah.
Which is really difficult sometimes, you know, to not always be there for everybody else and have to show up for yourself.
Yeah.
And it seems like you're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Trying to take
us. Yeah. So we're figuring it out. We're like, what is boundaries?
Yeah.
Like, this is a foreign language to me, and like we have to learn this now. Like it's whereas if you had a normal stable childhood, a parent would have met your needs, gone, this is not right, and you would have felt safe enough to feel like you can say no to things, or you don't have to do things to make somebody else happy because you're looking after yourself. So for us, it's like we got to learn this now as adults. Yeah.
And it's important because when it comes down to our careers, it's just us. You know, we can have friends and family to lean on, but whatever we encounter through our career, our profession, is affecting us and only us. It's one of those things where everyone around us can only imagine how that makes you feel or what you're going through, but we have to be able to process whatever is happening in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And relearning that and being okay with it. But it's amazing that doing different retreats in different ways, how much you gain from them.
Oh, I
mean, it's been the most amazing experience, and I feel like everybody should take the time to do these things for themselves.
I get goosebumps. I think it's the most profound thing that I've done, to, you know, to have that where you've been broken. When you mend that, you become so much more, you expand so much more as a person.
So much healthier too.
Yeah.
You know, just in a clearer mental space. And my biggest thing too is letting people know it's okay to do that. You're not a weak person because you go check into a place that says, give me your cell phone for so many days. That makes you a really strong person.
Yeah.
You know, to be able to say, okay, I'm going to do this, and it's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go into it with an open mind and hope that I gain as much as I can in this short amount of time for myself, that I can utilize it in my day-to-day routines and reality, to be able to encounter and face life as it comes every single day.
Yeah.
So how often do you...
And just on what you just mentioned, one of my favorite quotes to say to people on the strength that it takes to actually to do something like that, it's not a weakness, is... and I think this probably applies to a lot of people that have addictions, whether it be a substance or whether it be a habit that you have, whether it's love or sex or anything like that. A quote that I heard, which I thought was great, was the only way out of pain is through it. Because all of these things at the end of the day are just trying to numb our pain. But if you want to get out of it, like during these retreats and really looking at yourself and really doing the work, that takes so much courage and strength. Like you're opening the door to the messy room and you're like, I got to clean this. Like, otherwise this is going to keep biting me out. So I'm going to keep repeating patterns and I'm going to stay stuck. So yeah,
it's very true.
Yeah.
And that part's really hard to do.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a lot of willpower to be able to do that. What type of, you know, self retreats or help or what, you know, whatever you want to call it, that do you do for yourself? Where do you find it most benefiting?
So I was lucky because, my mom, as difficult as it was for her, she was an incredible woman. And she was someone that she knew she had problems and she really wanted to be better. And so she always introduced us. My first book that she gave me was from Louise Hay, like How to Heal Your Life. So at a young age, I was exposed to that. So I had the baggage, but I was also given the tools. It was like, you know, this is a way, like, I know I'm passing this down to you, but here's some stuff like, I couldn't do it. You try do it for, you know.
Right.
So luckily I had that, and I just always gravitated towards doing self-growth. I did a co-counseling course when I was in my teens, which gave me the tools to ask myself the right questions. It was more like, how do you ask the right questions to help yourself find the problems? And I think the question is very important. And I use that with other people too that I speak to. Like, it's like, I can't tell you. I could probably see what's happening with most people, but I'm not helping them by telling them. I'll only help them if I help them shine the light themselves on those areas, and that's through questions.